If you've been playing Clash of Clans for a while now like I have, you might have noticed that it just doesn't feel the same anymore. Back in the day, Clash of Clans was just a really simple and fun to play game, and nowadays it is still fun, but it is anything but simple. There are just so many different things to do in the game now that it just feels overwhelming, especially when you go into the shop and it's just full of bright and flashy offers trying to get you to spend your money. And today we're going to be talking about exactly why this is and why Clash of Clans just feels so different. So I think we should start all the way from the beginning, which was in August of 2012, the month that Clash of Clans came out. During this period of time, there were a total of 8 town halls, which is only half of what is available now. There were only 10 troops in the game, and some of them had very questionable icons looking back at it now, but back then they were perfectly fine. And these early stages of the game were pretty much like every other game. There were tons of balances and tweaks, such as then removing the upgrade timer for walls and just patching up a bunch of different things. And the game was pretty fun because it was really simple. You could use pretty much every troop pretty effectively since none of the defenses were too strong yet for any certain troops, and all of them had a place in the game for the town hall levels they were available in. And there wasn't really any sort of competitiveness in the game, and there wasn't any sort of focus on having the most trophies or anything, which compared to now is crazy considering Supercell is dishing out millions of dollars in tournaments. But during this time, Clash of Clans was just growing, and it was growing pretty fast. And this brings me to 2014, which I think was a defining moment for the game, and that was the fact that the clan wars were added to the game. And it was also at this point that the max town hall was Town Hall 10, and this is what most people refer to when they think of the old Clash of Clans, as this is when most people started playing the game, including me. 2014 and 2015 would end up being the biggest years for Clash of Clans, and I think this is a good benchmark to set for what most people consider to be the best or most memorable period of the game. And at this point, the game had become a little more competitive, especially because the Titan and Legend Leagues were added in July of 2015. However, Supercell themselves wouldn't focus on the competitive scene for a few more years, which we will talk about later in the video. The game was really peaking around this time, with everything seeming to be going perfect in terms of game balance and enjoyability. But after this is when people would really start noticing that the game was starting to feel a little different, and there is good reason for that. Obviously, due to their success, Supercell was a well-known name in the industry, and plenty of people wanted a part of their success, which led to a massive Chinese company called Tencent acquiring a majority of their shares in June of 2016. And just for some background, Tencent is a massive company that owns a large portion of the gaming industry, and they're largely considered to be a monopoly that is just driven by profits. And now they had a lot of control over Supercell and their games. And it was after this that the games really started feeling different, and when some people started saying that the game started declining. The first immediate noticeable change was the increase in things you could buy, which was mainly just more offers in the shop, and this in itself wasn't exactly too bad since the game was still very free to play friendly, but you could definitely notice that the game was focusing a little bit more on profits, especially because they were making a lot less compared to 2015 due to the popularity of the game declining. The first big thing that happened after they got acquired by Tencent was the addition of the builder base, which has been a bit controversial. But I think at the time, it was a good addition to the game since it added more things to do in the game without it being too much extra work. And at this point, you couldn't even get a 6th builder, so people just didn't bother playing it after getting in a couple of builder halls and realizing how hard it was to farm loot. And I think at this point, the game definitely felt different since there's a whole nother village to work on, but it still wasn't too different as the builder base still used many similar troops as the home village, and it was basically like just playing the early stages of the game again. The next big thing in the game to be added was the clan games, which once again added another pretty big feature into the game and added even more things for you to do. But this was still a good update as you could complete challenges to just get some nice extra rewards. However, it would be with the addition of Town Hall 12 in June of 2018 that I think most people would notice a massive change in the game, and that was the fact that the game was starting to lose its original feel of being a game set in the medieval time period. For the last 6 years, the game was pretty much just in the Stone Age without much futuristic tech, with the exception of the Eagle artillery of course. But now with Town Hall 12, electricity was introduced and town halls could now fight back, which I think just threw a bunch of people off. Plus, there were now the siege machines, which acted differently from all other troops, and the game suddenly became a whole lot more complicated. And from October of 2018 to October of 2019, there were just so many things that were added to the game so fast, such as the Clan War Leagues, magic items, auto builder hut, season challenges, Builder Hall 9, the reworking of Legends League, and so much more. This all made the game so much more confusing and complicated, especially for players that are coming back after a year or so. And this just made Clash of Clans feel like a whole new game. But I think the biggest change that happened was the removal of global chat in October of 2019. Global chat was such an iconic and loved feature in the game, but after its removal, the game just didn't feel the same at all. There was no more easy recruiting through global chat or just casually talking with other players. Now it was just your clanmates that you could talk to, which wasn't all that great if your clan wasn't always active. And in 2019, the first Clash of Clans World Championship also took place. And from then on, you could notice a bit of a shift by Supercell with them focusing more on the pro players of the game. By this point, the game definitely felt very different and maybe even weird to most players that were used to playing just 3 to 4 years ago. In December of 2019, you got Town Hall 13, which added another hero, but overall was pretty normal in terms of new content, and 2020 was basically just a year for Super Troops as a bunch of them were added. And this once again brought in a whole new element to the game and a new level of complexity that some players just weren't ready for. And in April of 2021, Town Hall 14 was added into the game, and the biggest thing with this were the pets. Now, I say they were the biggest because they were just the most different, and they also made Clash of Clans feel a bit different since pets and things of that nature are typically in other games and are associated with things that you spend money for. So while that's not exactly the case in Clash of Clans, it still just feels a little weird. And obviously it's just a whole nother level of complexity added to the game. And the next big thing was the clan capital in April of 2022. This was once again a new base, though it was a bit different as your whole clan would contribute to this, and you would all also contribute in the attacks, which I really liked and found interesting. But obviously it was just another element of the game that made it more complex. And moving on to Town Hall 15, well, I made a whole video talking about this, but basically it just really felt like Supercell was focusing on the pro players and felt like they didn't care as much about the normal players. However, with Town Hall 16, all of that would change and the game would take a 180 and it would suddenly become really easy due to how OP the Root Riders were. And this was obviously completely different from before, and it would also suddenly make Town Hall 15 a lot easier to attack, as the Root Riders were available for both Town Halls 15 and 16. Plus, this was also just a really unique and different troop in itself. And Town Hall 16 would also introduce building merging, which obviously is completely different, and this was really strange as bases were actually getting smaller, which obviously nobody was really expecting. But the most important thing will be the hero equipment, as this completely changed how heroes worked, as now you could give them different abilities, and the leveling system was also changed. So now the actual equipment will contain health and damage stats on top of the base health and damage of the individual heroes. And this equipment has really been a game changer and has completely changed how many attacks work. And there are plenty of really cool and unique pieces of hero equipment. But the final major change has been with the pace of the game, as it is much faster now with the big monthly events that just create more and more things to do. And each event is different, and that just causes there to be so many different things going on that it can get confusing if you aren't regularly keeping up with everything. However, we also did have the Unlimited Heroes event somewhat recently, and that did change a lot of people's perspective on the events, as this one was definitely made for the players, and it was possibly the best event to have ever happened in the game. And there have been a ton of other just different, bigger, and smaller changes, but those were really the main ones in my opinion. And you can see just how over time the game has really evolved so much, and there's just so much more stuff in the game. And if you've been regularly playing the game for a few years, then this honestly may not seem like a big deal, as you've been able to experience everything one by one. But for people coming back to the game after a while, then this is honestly a lot to take in, and it makes everything feel really different, and the game honestly just feels like something brand new. You can't just stop playing for a few months and come back and see the same thing. There's always something that has drastically changed, and this just wasn't the case a few years ago. But that is also it for this video. Let me know how you guys feel about the game, since I personally do really like it, but it definitely does feel very different from when I started playing, and I guess this is just because games naturally tend to evolve over time, and Clash of Clans is just one of those games that changes a lot. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.